On Monday, the newly sworn-in U.S. President Donald Trump, during the first hours of his administration, revoked the executive order that removed Cuba from the state sponsor for terrorism. In Palestine, authorities report the arrival of hundreds of shipments of humanitarian aid for those affected by the crisis in the Gaza Strip. And Venezuela welcomes more than 1,000 Colombians who are displaced by the armed conflicts in the Catatumbo region. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In the United States, President Donald Trump signed a series of executive orders on his first day in office following his inauguration. The first 9 executive orders were signed in front of a crowd of 20,000 people during the presidential inauguration parade in Washington. The first order resigns 78 executive actions and presidential memoranda issued by the Biden administration over the past 4 years. The president declared a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border while ordering a review of the refugee admissions program to better align it with U.S. principles and interests. The current president, meanwhile, called the previous administration the worst in history for allowing criminals and criminal groups into the country.
We're going to sign some orders right now, and that's really what I want to do. So we're going to sign executive orders. First, I'll revoke nearly 80 destructive and radical executive actions of the previous administration, one of the worst administrations in history. Maybe not one of them, the worst. Anybody that would allow millions of people to pour through our borders from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums, gang members to be taken off the streets of Venezuela and deposited in our country, and many, not just Venezuela. You know, crime in Venezuela is down 74% because they took their criminals and gave them to us through an open border policy of the previous administration.
On Monday, the newly sworn-in U.S. President Donald Trump, during the first hours of his administration, revoked the executive order of January 14th in which former President Joe Biden removed Cuba from the state sponsors of terrorism list. The president also announced that he will revoke the 78 of the previous administration's executive actions, which he described as destructive and radical. In addition, Trump ordered the repeal of executive order that guarantee an educational environment free of gender discrimination, as well as ordered the abrogation of laws that promoted racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. The U.S. president also talked about some of the measures he would take to make his nation rich again.
We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources.
And the indigenous U.S. leader Leonard Peltier, who has been in prison for more than 4 years, received a commutation of his sentence on January 20th in one of Joe Biden's last official acts before leaving the White House. The extraordinary move finally heard the outcry of thousands of people inside and outside the United States, international religious leaders, human rights organizations, and celebrities who called for his release. Peltier, 80-year-old, who was denied parole in July and was not eligible for parole again until 2026. Peltier was convicted of participating in the 1975 murder of 2 FBI agents on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota and was serving life in prison but always maintained his innocence. According to the defense, the evidence was falsified against him. And social movements and trade unions in Panama have expressed their willingness to resist U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to the nation's sovereignty. The group is led by the organizations that make up the United People Alliance, who reject Trump's declarations on the Panama Canal. The U.S. President assured that the tariffs charged on the Panama Canal to U.S. ships are too high and that if they are not lower, he will demand that the canal be handed over to the U.S. quickly and without questions asked. On the other hand, the National Union of Workers of Construction and Similar Industries, Suntrax, said that the sovereignty of the Panamanian people is intact.
Dice que presentó una ley que desde $1 en adelante podían adquirir el canal.
He says he has presented a law that could allow them to get the canal by paying $1 or more, and we have to say it loud and clear to the person who today, as of today, will live in this house, who is the ambassador appointed by this Donald Trump. And we want to make it clear to him that we, Panamanians, are up in arms to defend our nation, to defend our self-determination, to defend what is ours, and we will not cede or sell it to anyone, neither to the gringos nor to any other power that may have the same objectives they have.
On Monday, January 20th, the Panamanian justice system decided to postpone until November the trial in the Odebrecht case, in which former presidents Ricardo Martinelli and Juan Carlos Varela are accused. The date of the new hearing will be from November 11th to the 19th, with an alternate date from January 12th to February 13th, 2026, an action that, according to analysts, constitutes a new delay in the biggest corruption case in Panama since the investigation dates back to 2017. Despite the delays in the trial, the prosecutor's office announced that the investigation continues and that it is prepared to present any new evidence. 26 people are currently prosecuted for the alleged commission of the crime against the economic order in the form of money laundering, including the former presidents and several of their former ministers. Let's take now a short break, or you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Palestine authorities report the arrival of hundreds of shipments of humanitarian aid for those affected by the crisis in the Gaza Strip. In the context of the ceasefire agreement between Israel and the Palestinian resistance movement, approximately 915 trucks were allowed to cross the border from Egypt to the southern city of Rafah. After the truce, some families returned to their homes, finding a level of destruction that they describe as a dystopia. According to various organizations, around 90% of the Gazan population was displaced, suffering from malnutrition after 15 months of Israeli bombardment. Concurrently with the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, the Israeli forces and extremist settlers terrorized the Palestinian population in the occupied West Bank. On Monday evening, groups of heavily armed Israeli settlers launched a rush of arson attacks on vehicles, commercial facilities, and houses, injuring several Palestinians. The aggressions occurred in villages located east of Qalqilia city, while the occupation forces protected the offenders. At the same time, the Israeli army arrested many Palestinians in the West Bank, as well as it blocked access to numerous localities. And the World Health Organization urged the world to support the reconstruction of Palestine given the health challenges faced by Palestinians and the destruction of the health system. Through a statement, the WHO acknowledged the devastation caused by Israel in the midst of the genocide, in which it also killed more than 47,000 civilians and injured about 111,000. The agency also reaffirms the urgency of investment to reactivate hospitals and critical specialty areas such as trauma, emergency, primary health care, children's health, etc. over the next 3 months. Moreover, it urged respect for the ceasefire agreement to mitigate the impact of the crisis that Palestinians are facing. And the International Committee of the Red Cross called on the Israeli forces to respect the conditions of the ceasefire agreement in order to end the exchange of Palestinian hostages. Likewise, the committee asked Hamas to comply with the release of Israeli hostages as well as the return of the bodies of the captives killed during the last 15 months of conflict to their families. For its part, the Agency for Palestinian Refugees thanked the Air Force and affirmed that the first day of ceasefire was successful since it was respected by both the Israeli soldiers and the Palestinian resistance. On Sunday, the first phase of the ceasefire agreement began, where 3 Israeli hostages were released in exchange for the liberation of 90 Palestinians, mostly women and children. In other news, impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol will attend his political trial on Tuesday, which will take place at the Constitutional Court. The court is scheduled to hold the third hearing of Yoon's impeachment trial at 2 p.m. local time to examine evidence presented by the National Assembly related to the short-lived imposition of martial law on December 3rd. It should be noted that President Yoon, who is suspended from his duty, did not attend the 2 previous hearings held earlier this month. The court has 180 days to uphold or dismiss Yoon's removal from office. If this decision is ratified, Yoon will be removed from office, triggering an early presidential election within 60 days. If not, Yoon will be reinstated in his post. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck the Xi'ai district in southeastern Taiwan on Tuesday, leaving at least 26 people injured. According to the Emergency Medical Management System of the Ministry of Health and Welfare, all of the injured were transferred and received medical treatment. In the same vein, an Air Force helicopter was dispatched in the morning to the area to conduct an aerial survey and continue to assess the situation. As a result of the earthquake, train service, as well as water and electricity supply in several places are suspended, and now several sections of highways 20 and 29th in the district are also blocked by rock slides. And in Chile, almost 1,000 hectares have been affected by at least 34 forest fires nationwide. At least 966 hectares of forest have been consumed by the flames, according to official information, which confirms the continuity of the work of suffocation of at least 7 active outbreaks. In this sense, the National Service of Prevention and Response to Disasters ordered the preventive evacuation of the sectors at risk, including Romualdesco, Noa Huelve, and Ninico in the commune of Los Sauces, while the fire is being controlled. We now have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Venezuela welcomes more than 1,000 Colombians displaced by the armed conflict in Catatumbo region. The Venezuelan government activated the Simón Bolívar Humanitarian Task Force, where it established 4 support centers to provide comprehensive assistance to people affected by the violence. The refugees receive medical care, food, dignified shelter, and psychosocial support. The Colombian region of Catatumbo is marked as the epicenter of violence between armed groups seeking control of drug production. And in Mexico, during her conference on Monday, January 20th, the President Claudia Sheinbaum described the TMEC Treaty as beneficial for the 3 participating countries, unlike the North American Free Trade Agreement signed in 1994. Comparing the previous treaty with TMEC, Sheinbaum pointed out that the 1994 treaty had a central element, which was to use Mexico as a competitive advantage, such as cheap labor. Based on this analysis, she stated that only with the TMEC does it facilitate competition with other regions of the world. In this regard, the Mexican head of state considers that it is fundamental for the member countries to strengthen this scheme. always respecting the principles of self-determination and national sovereignty.
En el 2020, con el nuevo tratado México, Estados Unidos, Canadá, México es socio comercial de Estados Unidos. De hecho,
in 2020, with the new Mexico-United States-Canada Treaty, Mexico is a trading partner of the United States. In fact, part of what we have been proposing is that only with this trade agreement, with this alliance, we can compete with other regions of the world. In other words, the United States cannot do it alone, it necessarily needs Canada and Mexico. We have even been proposing, since President López Obrador, that this should be extended to the whole American continent in order to really have an economic bloc in our continent.
esto debería de ampliarse a toda América y tener
In Cuba, the Karl Marx Theater in Havana hosted the Cuban group Buena Fe and the Venezuelan singer and composer Omar Acedo during their two concerts this weekend. With their most recent presentation, the artists closed their Friends Tour, which took them to various scenarios in Venezuela to honor the music of both cultures from their respective visions. The public also accompanied the interpretations of outstanding songs of Cuban and Venezuelan music and of singer-songwriters such as Silvio Rodríguez, Ali de Primera, and Oscar de León. The artists emphasized the empathy achieved during the concerts based on respect and admiration to continue connecting with many people. And the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, declared on Monday a state of commotion and economic emergency given the worsening situation of violence in the country. The unprecedented escalation of violence left 100 dead and almost 20,000 displaced in 5 days. This exceptional decision empowers the executive to take extraordinary measures such as releasing resources and restricting the mobility of inhabitants. Petro has not specified the scope of the declaration, which may last for a maximum period of 90 days, extendable for up to 2 periods. Through his social media, the Colombian president said that peace is the revolutionary flag because it is the flag of life, and that he expects the support of the judiciary. And 1 year after the death of Colombian Senator Piedad Córdoba on January 20th, 2023, her legacy and her work for humanitarian and peace agreements for her country and Latin American integration remain fresh in our memory. Since she was a teenager, Piedad's neta Córdoba Ruiz was committed to social and political work with the most vulnerable communities. Elected as senator for the first time in 1994, she worked tirelessly from Parliament for a negotiated solution to the armed conflict in Colombia and a humanitarian agreement. In 2007, she was appointed as mediator for the liberation of military and political prisoners held by the former FARC EP, and teleSUR witnessed her great work towards this goal. Her legacy of struggle, perseverance, and fortitude remain present in the people of the South. We have come to the end of this news brief. In this context, we honor the memory and work of Piedad Córdoba. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, thank you for watching.
Verdad, para luchar por la justicia, para poder alcanzar la paz, para vivir la vida digna, hace falta humanidad, para encontrar el camino a la libertad, para seguir empuñando la espada de la dignidad y la libertad. Pueblo hermano, la nueva aurora resplandece en tu rostro de sonrisa y girasoles, tu eterna convicción de una Colombia de humana humanidad. Nuestra victoria también se llama piedad.
Desde el corazón de la mujer venezolana, para ti, piedad.